It's not my fault that we weren't caught up, except that apparently it is.
Well, yeah, but who's
It
counting?
was your computer's fault.
Yeah, which is still a problem, by the way. Hi, my name is Computer, and I suck at my job.
So was this the beginning of the podcast?
Yeah, we're already started.
Yeah.
Sorry, we have.
Hey,
We've been podcasting for a while now, like 2 years.
I mean the episode, Tristan.
Like 2 years.
Did anyone
Joseph.
even see the stream actually finalized?
I'm on the stream right now. I'm watching.
Yeah,
it.
I'm on it.
Okay,
I just need to. Yeah, look at this.
Good.
This is the Player 4 Podcast. Join us each week as we talk about video games, entertainment, and pop culture, and bring in guests from the Rooster Teeth community. Player 4 has entered the game.
Alright,
That's
let's get our intros in here, yes.
Tristan, it's time for you to say hello.
Hello. I am Tristan, aka Shagrasir, on the Rooster Teeth website.
I am Alex, aka Chaos Black 21.
Malachi, aka Suki Kiba.
AKA Dookie Kiba.
AKA Face Cake.
And I'm Joseph, aka Jay Dunlap. Tristan, you sounded like you were Stitch from Lilo and Stitch, and we have a guest.
Hi.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, yeah. Nice
Hi,
to have you
yeah.
on the podcast. Glad you're here. What do you do for a living, yeah?
Say again?
What do you do for a living?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
He doesn't.
Must be
I don't.
your job.
I wish, man. That would be the dream. Do I need to say who I am?
That would help.
I guess I could.
We're not off to a good start here, yeah.
I'm sorry, man. My name is Tim Emery, friend of Joseph, and super excited. I've been keeping up with y'all for a while.
Ew, I'm sorry to hear that.
Fun fact, Timmy was one of our test audience listeners on episode 0.
Nice.
Yeah,
And he's still here.
Well,
Heard episode 0.
yeah. I'm still here and with even less hair, and it's a very sad thing.
Episode 0 was never supposed to see the light of day or touch anyone's ears, Joseph.
maybe episode 0.
We didn't
is what
know that
caused
until people
it.
heard it and said how bad it was.
That's a terrifying thought if sound actually reached out and touched your ears every time you heard something.
I feel like my voice would be a soft caress in the dead of winter.
I feel like no matter whose voice it was, every time somebody spoke or I heard something and something run my ear, I'd just get a little shiver.
I'd feel violated.
Pee myself a little, probably.
It's okay. I do that at least once a day. Comes with old age.
Tristan does violate me at least once a day.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, God.
I didn't realize you were the new Alex, Joseph.
I didn't
We are-
either. Is
We are
something
really
Alex?
off to a great start.
Where
Hi.
did Tristan touch you?
Welcome to Livestream episode 0.
Sweet.
So I thought it'd be a cool idea if we made a list of the hottest video game characters.
Oh, God, no.
We're totally gonna go there.
I'm going to have PTSD. Hang on.
I will break my list back up.
I will break my foot off.
My
I
list
remember
is
that
in your
episode.
butthole.
It's quite entertaining.
So Timmy came prepared for this episode.
Did he? Because I sure as hell didn't.
What did you want to talk about, Timmy?
Okay, so I have logged probably too much time into Skyrim,
Okay.
and I am more excited. I'm more excited for the next Elder Scrolls probably than for my college graduation. And so what I wanted to talk about was Elder Scrolls 6, the possibility of where it could be, why Bethesda says the technology's not there, things of that nature.
Okay. I will definitely talk about that with you. I want to ask a question. You say you've logged too much time on Skyrim. Have you tried the game that released after Skyrim, Elder Scrolls Online?
I have not. You see, I was stuck in the technological Stone Ages for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I have just recently gotten a computer that might be able to run that. I've been interested in it since it came out, but I got a hold of Skyrim. A friend let me play on it, and I think I logged it was over a spring break, so I guess I logged 40 hours in a week.
Okay.
I put in a full work week of Skyrim.
Didn't get paid a cent for it either.
No, exactly. And and then I obtained my own Xbox 360 and copy of Skyrim, and logged well over 300 hours, probably closer to 375, 400 hours on Skyrim.
I respect that. You're
Respect,
probably
respect.
going to die early, but I respect that.
Yeah, I mean, longevity in life, or
Fun?
or
No?
or getting smithing up to 100, whatever.
Dude, smithing is the best skill in Skyrim.
What a toughie.
Well, and I found this interesting because with smithing, people say, "Oh, you just got to get the iron dagger, and then you can just enchant." Why are you going to get an iron? Why are you going to make 500 iron daggers
Mhm.
when the fastest way to up your smithing is just by making expensive jewelry?
Yeah, that works. I like making expensive jewelry, but I don't know. I
The
forget
ladies
what
like
really
the
did it
jewelry.
for me. Because I ended up having good smithing and good enchanting, which went hand in hand because I would create an item and then enchant it to be even better for smithing. And then I would use that to, increase my enchanting to create an item that was even better, that would make me even better at enchanting.
Hmm.
And I would spiral it out of control. It was,
And then you could do that with you could add an alchemy, like you could do a fortified smithing
Yep.
potion,
and then create a smithing, create another smithing or alchemy item and do
Yeah.
better and better and better and better. Yeah, you could do
the
that.
amount of stuff you can do is stupid.
It is. I will say that about Skyrim, I didn't enjoy the alchemy in that game as much as I did in Oblivion. I honestly had a lot more fun with alchemy in Oblivion. And I don't know, I mean, it wasn't that different, so I'm not exactly sure why. I do think that part of it was that you couldn't get better alchemy tools like you could in Oblivion, though.
I think part of it, and I didn't play a lot of Oblivion. I've seen gameplay of it, but I haven't played a lot. But from what I understand, Skyrim just had more, just the sheer amount of stuff you can do, and the alchemy seemed like kind of an afterthought. And it didn't have as big of an impact on gameplay as it probably did in Oblivion.
That's also true. I think part of it is the way that healing had been changed, and the fact that you could do continuous healing with the low-level healing spells, whereas in Oblivion you didn't have that, so you started relying on potions.
Yeah. And even if you wanted to, even if you didn't use like the fast healing or the continuous healing or whatever, once you got to a certain level, you found those vigorous healing potions all over the place, and you could
Yep.
carry 100 of those and not even think twice about it. You know?
Right. I mean, you didn't play much Oblivion, but I can tell you, you didn't find potions, and you could easily craft potions that healed better than the ones you found. So there was incentive to craft your own potions. Secondarily, you would crafting potions that did more than one effect. The other thing was that you were limited in Oblivion to how many potions you could suck down at once. When you opened your menu, you could ingest 3 potions at a time, and then you had to close the menu and then open the menu again, during which time you got the crap beat out of you.
Mm-hmm.
So that was important to have potions that were very effective. The other thing that made alchemy very, very useful in Oblivion more than in Skyrim was that in Oblivion, if you went over capacity, you couldn't move at all.
Oh,
You were completely stuck in place when
it
you
wasn't
hit.
the slowed down.
Right. You in Skyrim, it just slowed you to a walk and made it so you couldn't fast travel. In Oblivion, you stopped dead. So it was really, 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 really incredibly important that you were crafting potions that allowed you to increase your carry capacity,
Yeah.
which meant fighting monsters that dropped items that allowed you to craft potions to do all that. So, I just felt like that between Oblivion and Morrowind, the alchemy was much more useful than it was in Skyrim. But
Yeah.
back to your original topic, which is the Elder Scrolls 6. You wanted to ask where they're going to host it, and I imagine that, like with every other game in the series, they're going to choose a new location.
That's the assumption, at least what I've read online and what makes sense to me.
Yep. So we know that the Elder Scrolls 1 was called Arena.
And that had everything.
It was, yeah. That was the entire world was open. which I really thought that ESO would have been don't get me wrong, I really enjoy ESO. I like it a lot. It's a very well done game. But I really thought that it would be a better analog of that. But ESO is in fact just they're large areas, but there's just small segments of each country. You can go to every country, some small portion of it, but you don't really have the full exploratory ability that I imagined you would.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be just it's a limitation of technology.
Yeah. Because, I mean, just the mass that you'd have to be able to... Your computer would have to be able to compute.
Yeah.
That technology probably just doesn't even... It's not even near existing.
Right, not quite yet. But I think that's the kind of technology that they're probably waiting on for... that they want to outdo themselves. They want to make a game better than Skyrim when they make 6, which is why they're not, they say we're not going to do anything with it until we know we can do a better job than Skyrim.
Which
that's
is
a pretty
kind of
high
mind-blowing.
Yeah, that's a pretty high bar to set.
That's an awesome bar to set for a company.
Yeah, Bethesda, I think, has done a really good job of always outdoing itself. I would say that each Fallout game has looked better and had more depth to it than the previous one. And I know from experience with almost every Elder Scrolls game that each one was way better than the last. I liked Morrowind a lot, but jumping from Morrowind to Oblivion was fantastic, especially just looking at the graphics and the scope of the game. One thing, though, that I have noticed is that each successive Elder Scrolls game has had fewer and fewer NPCs.
Less free to accidentally kill?
I will say named NPCs. Like, every NPC had a name in Oblivion and in Morrowind, and they had whatever they helped you with, their life. But in Skyrim, there were a lot more no-name NPCs, just filler people. They didn't add anything to the game. There were a lot of story NPCs, but just not as many as in Oblivion.
What's the age of ESO right now?
The age of ESO? Oh, you mean like what period of time is it set in?
How long has it been out?
2 years? 3?
I think ESO came out in 2015?
Okay, so if we think about it, though, another reason why they probably don't want to wait for the technology is because they also have ESO still going on right now, which is they probably want to expand on that a bit before they move on to the next thing.
I mean, a little, but ESO isn't adding anything to the storyline.
Oh,
because ESO takes place in the past, in a part of the story that was always, just written in books in all of the other games. Mm-hmm. It's taking place in a part of the history that we already know basically what happened.
They're still adding content to the game, though, right?
Oh, yeah. No, they're actually going to be releasing the next expansion, I guess you would call it, which is Morrowind. And I've read some really good reviews of that. The critics are saying that, a lot of times when game companies want to revisit old content to try and make it fresh and new, they always leave something to be desired. But a lot of the critics are saying that they've really actually kind of nailed it with Morrowind and brought back the original magic and mystery of Elder Scrolls 3.
So that could be another reason why they also want to wait for this technology outdo themselves, because they already have this ongoing with ESO.
All right, I was wrong. It was 2014 was the ESO release date.
I thought it was 2014.
April 4th.
Yeah, I've been in there since beta. I haven't played a lot lately, just because doing other things. Still a good game. Still a very good game. So yeah, each successive Elder Scrolls has taken place in a different country after the first. So Elder Scrolls 2 was Daggerfall, which is in High Rock. There was an interim game that was not really part of the series. It was Elder Scrolls Adventures, I believe it was called, Redguard, where when you didn't create a character and play, a normal Elder Scrolls story. They basically gave you a named character and you played his story as he quested to save his sister, and so that took place in Hammerfell. Then, of course, Morrowind, Elder Scrolls 3 took place in Morrowind. Oblivion took place in Cyrodiil. Skyrim took place in Skyrim. So a lot of the conjecture that I've been hearing lately is proposing that the next one will take place in Valenwood. Seems the next most likely target location.
And
would being
Valenwood
a
is
hell
where
of
the Bosmer are, and
Yes.
I looked up some lore on it earlier, and it's super exciting, and I can see why it's such a big undertaking, because the cities actually move around. It's a strange thing, because the Bosmer, the Wood Elves, they don't use roads. They just move through the trees, and the trees actually move. The cities actually move with the trees. At least that's what I read up, and so that was super exciting to me.
Yes. No, you can read actually a lot about these different locations in the books that are present in every one of the Elder Scrolls games, and I will admit to being the super nerd who boots up Skyrim just to find a book I haven't read before and read it. I remember the first time I fell in love with the Elder Scrolls series was when I had just recently started playing Oblivion after only playing, maybe a couple hours of Morrowind before that, and thinking it was not a bad game. And I went to a mage's academy and said, I want to be a mage. Teach me a fire spell. And they taught me Fireball. And I set it off in Oblivion inside the mage's academy, and I knocked all these books off the bookshelves. And I was sitting there marveling, just in childlike wonder, that every one of the books on the shelves had been an individual item that the physics engine was calculating for, that I could send them, ragdolling around the room, and they would flop open, the pages would turn. And then I found out that not only were they physics objects, you could read them, and they had words inside them.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, that's cool, because, the first one I picked up had, like, a page of text, and I was like, oh, a little story. Then the next one I picked up had 14 pages of text inside it. And I gained a whole new appreciation for the game when I realized that the vast majority of the books there had 4 or more pages. And in just the room I had blown up, there were 150 books.
Mm-hmm.
I was staring at, 700 pages of text. Who went to the trouble of writing this, Like, that is a lot of work, and it fleshes out the history of the realm, the different cultures, and they're all written from the point of view of a person living within that world. So you'll read a book, and it'll say, oh, this race is like this, these cultures are like that, this is how it happened, this is the history of that. Then you'll pick up another book that talks about the same period and the same cultures, and it has a completely different take on them. And you have to sit there and go, well, who's right? What's the reality? They set up contradicting histories because they're written by different people who focused on different aspects. And wow!
Exactly.
The world is so much deeper than just the story they present you with. And that's why I fell in love with it, honestly. That's why I was so excited to play ESO, because it focused on the Second Era, during which there was no emperor in Cyrodiil, and there was all this turmoil, and it was the same time that one of the major races in the world kind of vanished, which was another point of historical contention, because most of the books you read will say that they're snake people, and then you'll find histories that say, well, people call them snake people because of how they act and how they deal with people politically and economically. But really, it's just a moniker that stuck with them. They're human, just like everybody else, but you've never seen any of them, so who knows? Maybe they are reptilian, like the Argonians.
Mm-hmm.
I feel silly because I can't think of the name of that race.
Sneaky snakes.
Yeah, sneaky snakes, man.
I'm a snake.
But yeah, so you want to talk ESO? I will talk your ears off.
Oh no, dude! This is the stuff that I get really excited about. I nerd out about a lot of things, but certainly Elder Scrolls is one of the things. I think Joseph and I have had conversations, and I think because of the single player aspect of Skyrim, he got kind of bored with it. But I'm the type of dude that if I just lock myself in a room and play Skyrim for the day, then I'm perfectly fine. Spend a Saturday just diving into the lore. And you spoke on the books being a source of information, and it's incredibly true. At the same time, I know so many people who just get into Skyrim or any of the Elder Scrolls for the hack and slash adventure, and they're like, do I gain anything from this book? No, so they toss it to the side. Or do I level up from this book? And I think that's another really cool thing about the Elder Scrolls series, is that it not only appeals to the people who want to know everything about the lore and the characters and everything, but it also appeals to the people who just want to go kill a village.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, and I've actually said this to other people that have talked about it in the past. Is that it's a very much choose your level of involvement game, because you can just play through the storyline and, go beginning to end, and they all have very interesting and almost all world-threatening storylines, but by the end of you feel like you were a destined champion of the world. Or you can go further and, interact with some of the NPCs and find out that, they have lives and interests and jobs and things, and you can help them out. So, choose to become a little bit more involved, or you can do what you and I apparently do, which is read all the damn books and learn all the damn lore.
Yeah.
But I personally think that just makes it so much more enjoyable, because there's a lot of payoff. Like, there are books and books and books. You probably have read The Wolf Queen, volumes 1 through 4, a few times as you've gone through Skyrim.
Yeah.
You've seen them everywhere. Well, that talks about one of the queens that at one point assumed power in Cyrodiil in the First Era, named Potema. Well, in ESO, actually, was it in ESO or Skyrim? Now I can't remember. In one of the two, you actually do meet the vengeful spirit of Potema and have to lay her to rest, because she's like abducting people and still trying to resurrect herself to take control of the capital again.
That's in Skyrim, and that is actually in the seat of the Empire in Skyrim.
That was in the Blue Castle in Solitude.
Exactly.
So
what it is, you go up to the castle, and people who played the game have done this, but you go into the castle. The Thane, I think, tells you, "Hey, we've got a problem. If you want to fix it, go clear out the wings." Yeah. So you go clear out this cave, and they're like, "Hey, it's worse than we thought," and so they just. Long story short, you actually go and you find her bones, and then you fight her. Oh, dude, it's so fun. Sorry.
Yeah, that was a good mission. I liked that one. And it really tied into the lore of the world. Like, this isn't just something they said, angry ghost, go kill it. There have been books. The Wolf Queen, the 4 volumes of the Wolf Queen have appeared in every game since Morrowind. So the story of Potema has been in the game as canon history for 2 decades almost. So it's great, the payoff you get if you paid attention to some of these things, to see these characters from the histories appearing and getting to feel like you're touching the history of the world. I love. You wouldn't. In Skyrim, there is a point where you find a cave. I don't remember the pretense under which you end up in this cave, but it's part of old Dwemer ruins, and it's the only place in the game where you can find red Nirnroot.
Yeah. There's also a huge light hanging in the middle of it.
Yep.
And if you shoot it with an arrow, then you fight a dragon.
Oh, I actually didn't remember that at all. I must not have shot it. In any event, the red Nirnroot was first introduced in Oblivion. There was a high elf, magical botanist named Sindarian, who is the one who introduces you. He lives in Skingrad, and he tells you about Nirnroot, and Nirnroot has very few properties that you can really use alchemically in the game. He's an alchemist, but he says, look, I know a way to mix Nirnroot and actually make it a useful plant. And so you collect 20 Nirnroots, bring them to him, he gives you a potion. You collect 40 Nirnroots, bring them to him, he gives you a stronger version of the potion, until you've collected 100 Nirnroots, and he gives you the best adventurer's potion ever, and it makes you fucking godly. If you go around that area with the red Nirnroots, at some point he tells you that he believes that red Nirnroot exists in Oblivion, but you never see it. If you go around this area, you will find notes and journals that are signed by Sindarian in Skyrim. Outside, there's a dark elf near one of the towns who is growing Nirnroot. She says, I've got the only garden in the land that can sustain Nirnroot, and she she talks really non-specifically about her mentor who taught her to cultivate Nirnroot. As you're going around this area, and I think there are like 50 red Nirnroot you can find in there, 20 or just whatever. You get a thing for collecting all of them. You do happen upon, I think with one of the last Nirnroot that you find, you happen upon a skeleton with a journal next to it, and the journal is penned by Sindarian, so the implication is that the skeleton is that of Sindarian. And it makes a lot of sense because high elves are supposed to be incredibly long-lived, and this takes place only 200 years after the events of Oblivion. So it's like there's all these tie-ins to other games in the timeline. It's just really cool to feel involved in that.
Yeah, you can spend so much time, probably too much time, studying it and learning about it. And I don't think you could ever get to the point where you're satisfied.
No.
Because there's just so much. And I think, I sent this website to Joseph. It was an article talking about Elder Scrolls 6 and what the possibilities are.
Yep.
And the thing I realized is that Bethesda uses 100 programmers compared to places like EA, which can use upwards of 1,000 or more, whatever. And these 100 programmers, they built Skyrim and they built all the lore of Arena and Daggerfall and Morrowind. And,
they've been in it forever. They're a part of it.
And these same guys just pour their souls into it. And honestly, in my mind, these guys deserve to have their work appreciated. And I think that people who play the game really do appreciate the work. Like you and I, we read the books. That's something that a lot of people just don't do. But I think maybe another reason for the delay, not simply the technological restrictions, but maybe they're just still fleshing out the lore.
Could be. I mean, Skyrim ends. You can choose how it ends, which was a little bit different from previous ones where you had choices, but this seemed more impactful if you chose to try and close off, get Skyrim to be more xenophobic than it already was, and just try to kick out both the Aldmeri and the Cyrodiil, or Skyrim for the Nords, which I could never get behind. Even when I played a Nord in the game, I was like, I still can't side with this. Or you sided with the Empire, with the caveat, the Empire is technically aligned with the Aldmeri, but the caveat is that none of them really wants to be. And you kind of have this feeling that you're going to have a repeat of the 500 companions. Darn it, I am blanking on names, and I hate when I do that. But, where he comes over with these people from Atmora, lands on Tamriel, and says, this place is nice. We're going to set up our society here, and the elves own the place. And they said, no, you could be our slaves. And he's like, yeah, slaves, that's, no.
Yeah, exactly.
He kicks the ass of every elf he comes in contact with and sets up a human civilization on Tamriel. Damn.
So a word about the release of Elder Scrolls 6. I pulled up the article that Timmy was linking to us earlier this week. And at E3 2016, Tom Howard said that the internal studio is currently working on Elder Scrolls 6, but it's a long way off because they have 7 other projects they're currently working on, 2 of which are bigger than anything they've ever done before, and neither of those are Elder Scrolls 6.
Yeah.
So while he's careful with his words, he says so. I'm going to have to be careful what I say. It's a very long way off, is what he says. So it is something in production, and it may be a mix of working out the lore and just the limited resources that they actually have to put together a game with 7 other projects in the way.
Working on, in quotations, to be fair, they're not really working on because they even say they're not even in pre-production yet.
Yeah, that's exactly what it says. But he also makes a point that the studio is not a vending machine where they push the Elder Scrolls button, then the Fallout button, then the Elder Scrolls button, then the Fallout button. So they've had a lot to work on in the past few years.
You could say Elder Scrolls 6 is a twinkle in the eye right now.
Which is fine.
What are you implying?
That somebody has to bang the game out of somebody else.
You took that a different direction than I was thinking there, man.
No one keep up with me.
But
by the way, Tristan, the snake people are the Seichi.
Seichi? There must be another name for them, because that's not...
Or Seichi, but they are a race of vampiric serpent folk and or humans.
And or humans. Because it's really not certain.
yeah.
They're described...
From Akavir.
Yeah, Akaviri. That's it. Yeah, it's okay. Seichi must have been the sub-race. Akaviri was the name I was trying to think of. They come from the island of Akavir. And the interesting thing, I really was looking forward to, one of the reasons that there in the second era there was no emperor is because he was usurped and dethroned by his basically royal vizier, the potentate Versidue Shai, who was an Akaviri. And because of that, they then fought the Akaviri War against the Akaviri, and basically kicked them off of Tamriel. And I was really hoping that we would get to run into some Akaviri as part of this game, because it happened, in the same time period as the game takes place. But the game clearly takes place something like 20 years after the War of Akavir, because some people talk about how their father was in it and stuff like that. But I have yet to meet an Akaviri. I'm like, I just want to... I think they did it on purpose. They don't want you to know if they're humans or not. Come on. I just want to know. I want to know if they're snake people or not. I know we have the Argonians. It won't be something super new, but I just want to know. I don't like not knowing.
Yeah,
And the leader was Ysgramor.
Ysgramor, yes, that was it. Ysgramor and the 500 companions.
Well, one of the rumored locations for the next game is Argonia, so...
Yes, Argonia could be. So the ones that they haven't done are Valenwood, Elsewhere, Argonia...
well, Argonia and Black Marsh are the same thing.
Somewhat elsewhere.
Well, Morrowind, while it was the title of a game, they only featured a small portion of that area.
Well, the primary island called Vardenfell, which makes
went elsewhere.
Something like somewhere between 40 and 50% of the landmass of Morrowind is on Vardenfell. The interesting thing that when I first started playing ESO is that if you start with the Ebonheart Pact, you start in Morrowind, and the explorable area of Morrowind is basically everything except Vardenfell. So you can see, the Red Mountain as you're traveling around through the rest of Morrowind, and you can see where it borders Black Marsh, but you can't go to Vardenfell. And so now this latest update to the game expansion set is going to open up Vardenfell and all of the city of Vivec and everything that you got to see in Morrowind just 2,000 years earlier.
I wonder... I don't know if you probably did. Did you play the Dragonborn expansion in Skyrim?
Yeah.
Fun. That's so fun.
You got to go to Solstheim.
Yeah, you got to go to Solstheim, and you could still see the Red Mountain.
Yep.
And that was after Morrowind was actually uninhabitable. Because
the Red Mountain exploded.
Exactly. And so, and you might be able to help me figure this out. The Elder Scrolls games go in with the exception of ESO, they go in chronological order, correct?
Yeah, but the number of years that pass is a little uncertain. But yes, Elder Scrolls, I know for certain that Elder Scrolls 3 and 4 happened during the Third Era, all under Tiber Septim, the Seventh. And at the beginning of 4, Tiber Septim dies, and the storyline of 4 is you're finding his bastard son and putting him in power. So then, apparently, that's why Skyrim was such a kick in the teeth for me, because I had gotten myself between 3 and 4, I had gotten myself invested in Cyrodiil and the Empire, and thinking, not everything they do is great, but they are just trying to make a stable world. And then you start off Skyrim and you find out that the Empire has fallen. The Aldmeri Dominion has basically come back and said, yeah, you remember that time that Ysgramor came in and kicked our ass out of this place? Yeah, we're going to do that to you.
Yeah.
And so you start off with an empire that is really hard to respect, because it rolled whoever took power after Tiber's son died, because it's 200 years later, was a pansy and just rolled over for the Aldmeri and gave them the White Gold Tower. It's like,
yeah, and that's a huge source of contention in Skyrim, is the White Gold Concordant.
Yep.
But
The White Gold
it's-
Concordat was the agreement that ended the war with the Aldmeri when they came back, but also basically dissolved the Empire into the Aldmeri Dominion.
Yeah, I don't like the Thalmor.
No, you shouldn't like the Thalmor. They're bad people.
Yeah, and like no matter who you play as, if you side with the Empire, and I sided with the Stormcloaks to see what happened. No matter which side you're with, you're always going to be looked down upon by the Thalmor, and that just made me mad.
Well, because both sides, no matter who you side with, you're trying to kick out the Thalmor. It's just,
Exactly.
are you kicking out the Thalmor and everyone who isn't a Nord because the Stormcloaks are really, really, really xenophobic? Or are you kicking out the Thalmor and trying to restore Skyrim to this ally of the Empire that it was for the last 600 years?
Yeah,
And a home to all. Like, you meet so many Cyrodiil in Skyrim. You know, they're like, this has been my home, my family's home for 100 years. We're not we're not Nords, but this is still our home.
yeah, it's so good.
That brings up something I have been thinking about recently.
Mhm.
This is not Elder Scrolls.
Yeah.
This is Mass Effect Andromeda, if I may.
Okay. No, that's fine. Go for it.
No, it's something fascinating about the concept of games and stories where people are supplanted from their home location and then set up shop somewhere new, such as races that are not Nords in Skyrim, or the Milky Way inhabitants going to Andromeda, or say Narnia, where the human dudes end up from Europe and they end up in Narnia, and then they grow up
Become
there,
the
like they have
kings.
kids there. Yeah.
Yeah.
The idea of eventually your descendants view where they are as home.
Yep.
Let's see, what's some other examples of that? Oh, that campaign I told you guys about that I was doing last summer with some friends from school that took place on an alien planet, but this concept where Earth had a wormhole open up nearby outside our solar system, so we went through the wormhole and found a whole other cluster where we could colonize, and then another alien race went there, and then the story of what we were role-playing took place hundreds of years afterward when the wormholes had collapsed and everyone just got stuck on the planets where they were colonizing. So then the planet in question was the descendants of colonists from both the human race and the alien race having to get along about 150 years after a huge war had broken out. And, you know, it's legit like human beings growing up in this alien race, and this is home for them. Same thing with Andromeda, same thing with these people who may not be Nords, but Skyrim is home for them, and the Nords are, basically the KKK?
Well, there's a subset of them that really are like Skyrim for the Nords. If you're not a Nord, you don't belong here. But that's not been that was really weird, and it was hard for me to accept because all of the lore that I'd read, and, you know, again, the lore is always written from the perspective of a person in the world. So the lore could have been written from the perspective of the Cyrodiil. And so he would view Skyrim favorably because they've always been an ally of the Empire. Like, for as long as the Empires existed, they were a staunch ally and supporter of the Cyrodiil. So, you know, I'm sure that there's always been some feelings among some, you know, Nords. Why do we bother dealing with Cyrodiil? We don't need to be their, you know, their warriors, their lapdogs, their saviors. We're Skyrim. We're strong. But I think that a lot of Nords, and you meet a lot of them, do view Skyrim as being stronger when it's part of the Empire. So, I mean, yes, there is a subset of kind of KKK-like Nords.
And it's such a weird concept because the people saying all of this, like, this is for Nords, don't even remember a time when it was just Nords.
Yeah.
So how do they know?
I don't know. It's that ultra-nationalism. You don't have to really know anything to go, yeah, this is our place. You don't belong here.
You don't have to know anything to be racist.
Yeah, I mean, we see that in the real world every day, and I think that's what makes it relatable, but it also made the story, you know, following the Stormcloaks really hard for me, because you can argue that the Empire's bad. The Empire has done tons of horrible things throughout its existence in forcing the nations around it to be part of the Empire. Like, it had to conquer Blackmarsh several times.
Yeah, they set up a presence everywhere. They blew up Alderaan. They had Darth Vader.
You hurt my heart.
Use the Force, Harry.
You're a wizard.
Vote
Signed
Joseph off the
Gandalf.
island.
Yeah, I just got voted off the island by Timmy.
Yeah. I
So-
second motion.
So, ultimately, deep lore in the Elder Scrolls universe, so that makes it all the harder to even have any inkling of an idea of what the next game will be about. And I'm going to guess it's probably going to be 2019 when we actually see it. Maybe 2020.
At least.
And at that point, in 2020, we'll be like, well, we could have seen this coming.
I mean, it's you're right. There's so much deep lore, and every game in the series adds a new story, adds a new leg to the story. The world is still growing and developing. It was odd for them to suddenly jump 2 years after having 3 games, 200 years after having 3 games in a row that spanned, like, the same decade. But they were just further developing the story, and so where they go next, what the next problem is, like, every game had books that talked about dragons, talked about the dragon break, how time was created by the dragon god, but you've never seen a dragon. That's why Skyrim was so heavy on the dragons, because they said, look, we've talked about dragons in past games, but we've been like, we've got all the elements of a Western medieval RPG, except for fighting dragons. But in every game we talked about how there used to be dragons. And so then Skyrim set up a storyline in which the dragons suddenly reappeared. And that, became...
Thank you, Alduin.
Thank you, Alduin. All I can think of is Ariel, which is the elven name for the dragon god. I can't... Akatosh.
Akatosh, yeah.
Akatosh, the dragon god. Oh my gosh. I don't know how I could forget that. In any event,
Well,
I hope that they are more focused in 6.
You didn't enjoy the vastness of Skyrim?
No. I love the vastness of Skyrim. I love exploring. It was they had multiple storyline disease going on, where it was hard to get invested too heavily in any one thing because there were so many things going on. You had the Civil War going on between the Nords who were loyal to the Empire and the Nords who were loyal to other Nords, to the Stormcloaks. You had both of those factions not really working together, but trying to force out the Thalmor. And on top of all that, suddenly dragons come back and threaten literally the entire world with destruction, as Alduin, the great destroyer, resurfaces.
this sounds a lot like the World of Warcraft lore.
It just happened all at once, which was troubling. Like, if you look at Oblivion, you had exactly one problem. You had the heir to the septum line. There's a very specific prophecy made, not a prophecy, a pact made. As long as someone who carries the septum line from Tiber Septim, who ascended to godhood, as long as somebody who carries his blood sits on the golden throne, the scarlet throne, rose throne, whatever the fuck, and that keeps the dragon fires lit, then Oblivion, the denizens of Oblivion, cannot come to Nirn, cannot invade Tamriel. And all of a sudden, the last known heir of Tiber Septim's line kicks it. He is murdered by a group of assassins, and the dragon fires go out. So all of the reason it's called Oblivion is that all of these portals start opening up all over Cyrodiil, and the denizens of Oblivion start pouring into Tamriel and trying to burn the place down. And was it Dagoth-Ur? It was, right? It was Dagoth-Ur who was trying to merge. He was trying to initiate the plane meld and merge.
Mehrunes Dagon.
Mehrunes Dagon.
Mehrunes Dagon.
Dagoth-Ur is the antagonist in ESO. Mehrunes Dagon was trying to merge Nern and his plane of oblivion together. And so you had to stop. So you had to be fighting, closing these oblivion gates, stopping the invasion, and then you had to find this bastard son of the last king of Tamriel, of Cyrodiil, and get him to do his job. And convincing him to do his job was a royal pain in the ass.
I'll do it, but first you have to kill 10 boars, bring me 3 fish, pick 10 herbs for me.
No. You had
Kill
to,
another 50 boars.
You figure out what Nernroot does.
You did have to basically prove your worth and show him that, there are people who believe in altruism and protecting others just for the sake of protecting others. He was like, you're telling me that I am actually the son of the king of Cyrodiil, and that now that he's dead, I have to do his job? Why? I'm, a priest of RK. Why can't I just keep doing that?
Yeah. I'm not sure I can agree with you. While I respect your opinion, I loved being able to hit the pause menu, look at everything I have that I can do. 100 quests that I have open, and some of them might be tedious. Go gather 20 Crimson Nernroot.
I don't want you to misunderstand. Every game has had tons of side quests, and that is a selling point. That is. I didn't mind that at all. My problem was not with the lack of focus in quests. You should have tons of side quests and the ability to, and incentive to explore the whole world. That's good. My problem was that the main storyline had 2 foci, and so it was hard to focus on just one. You had to keep jumping back and forth. You were going through you felt like you're this important person who's deciding the fate of Skyrim and the Empire at large by who you side with and how you deal with the Thalmor. And you're trying to feel like you're important doing that. But then at the same time, it's like, yeah, but whether or not I reunite these people under the banner of the Empire and kick out the Thalmor, we're all going to die if I don't stop the dragons. So you kind of have to put that on hold, go deal with the dragons. And after you've gone to Sovngarde, fought the god dragon in God Heaven, you come back to Tamriel and you're like, now I have to go deal with some petty babies who can't decide how they want to run a government.
So it's more the hierarchy and the importance of each of the stories. You would have rather had one or the other rather than both happening simultaneously. Because you're right, the fate of Nern or the fate of Tamriel, that's kind of a little bit more important than a squabble between Skyrim's government and the Empire.
Right. Exactly. That's what I want to say was my problem when I say lack of focus.
I got you. I understand now.
Most stories tend to be structured in a way that you get the people to work together, then they go help you deal with the problem.
There was a little bit of that. You had to, get them on speaking terms, and then they said, okay, go deal with the dragon, but honestly, that at the end of the day, you kill either the general of the Empire's forces, or you kill the leader of the Stormcloaks.
Spoiler alert, spoiler alert.
Yes, I'm sorry, I just spoiled a 4-year-old game.
Don't have listened to this if you have not played it. Go back and don't listen to it.
Yeah, go back in time. Stop yourself.
Neuralize yourself
and go back in time.
Get a neuralizer.
Bleep out everything Tristan just said.
I mean, the remastered version isn't that old.
I think we need to grind this conversation to a halt.
Okay.
Sadly, because we're reaching the hour mark.
I'm going to
That's a bummer.
grind this sword.
It is. Maybe we can pick it up another time.
It's been an Elder Scrolls live podcast.
It's been a Tristancast.
I love...
Tristan geeks out about Elder Scrolls.
With Timmy.
Part 20.
With Timmy.
With Timmy.
With Timmy. So that's the twist. He has a sidekick now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm down with that.
I wanted to bring up one thing,
Uh-oh.
which is my Adventurers League D&D campaign finally ended.
Double O. How'd it go?
They killed the dragon. So Adventurers League, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it before, but it's a sanctioned D&D game run at game stores that are sanctioned by Wizards of the Coast. It's an event they can report just like a Magic tournament or anything else that's owned by wizards, and the point of it is to get people either into a game when they don't have one or learn how to play D&D. And you do published materials published by wizards. So we did a campaign starting, I want to say, in September or October, called Storm King's Thunder. And it's a multi-chapter campaign that takes you from level 1 to level 10. Multiple chapters, multiple little stories that you have to go through. A few places where you're just traveling, so you refer back to the travel chapter and have random encounters and stuff. And the story was that giants are showing up everywhere and messing everything up and killing people. And they're like, why is this happening? It turns out that the king of the giants was kidnapped by a dragon. He was keeping the hierarchy caste system of the giants in check. Without him in place, the giants are just going everywhere killing people. And they're ruled by the storm giants. And the storm giants have no power. So you're dealing with little problems on a local level, and then as you progress through it, everything becomes a little bit more big picture, until finally you go on a journey with a good aligned frost giant named Harshnag with a dragon skull for a helmet. And you travel all the way north from Waterdeep to the spine of the world, because this takes place in Faerun, Sword Coast. And when you get there, you meet an oracle spirit that tells you what's going on, and then you have to go and kill a giant lord, 1 out of 4, I want to say. And when that happens, you get their conch of teleportation. You talk to the Storm King's daughter. She says he's been kidnapped by the people that killed her mother. You go to a gambling ship and have a Ocean's 12 kind of heist thing. Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13, that kind of thing, where you're infiltrating the gambling ship. You interrogate the dude who runs it because he knows where the giant king is being kept. He gets killed mentally by a kraken, sci-fi style, where like they have a link and they kill him and he falls over dead.
The
then
kraken is an outer creature?
Yeah, well, the kraken is like there's a cult of the kraken that's keeping the Storm King prisoner, and the kraken has a telepathic link to this dude and kills him. Then you go and you free him, and then he says, well, let's go kill the dragon that has been posing as a giant and advising my daughter and was behind all of this. So you travel to this huge desert amphitheater and take out this dragon, and everyone has a potion that turns them into a giant. So you're fighting alongside all these giants in the Storm King for the final battle. But the fun thing was, Harshnag is there. Harshnag was good buddies with the characters. In fact, in my version, he took them to a brothel where they have no idea what happened. They assumed fun things happened, but they didn't, because they were too drunk to remember.
A night to remember.
It was an afternoon. He needed to sober them up.
An afternoon to remember.
So Harshnag got in the habit of throwing the tank of the group, which was a dwarven warlock who was convinced he was a paladin because he was a little crazy. He would throw him into the battle so he would be face to face with whatever he was trying to get the aggression from. Well, they did something like that where Harshnag threw the 2 players that actually showed up for the final session into battle at trebuchets being run by gargoyles, except that they imbibed the giant potion while they were in mid-flight.
So they landed as giants.
They landed as giants, dealt a massive amount of fall damage onto the trebuchet. At one point, the dwarf flew with the fly spell up like 200-something feet, and then used the fly spell to double his fall speed, so that he dealt over 150 damage of fall damage to himself and the dragon, and then on the way down, hit the dragon with a bag full of alchemist's fire. And made a mushroom cloud.
I mean, I was going to say it sounded like something I did in my first 3.5 campaign, but I didn't use Alchemist Fire.
I thought it was a nice touch. He wanted to die, but he went down to 7 hit points, so he didn't die.
Oh, yeah, I managed not to die. I almost died.
So it was interesting. It was a fun campaign. There's the serious campaigns, there's the funny campaigns, and then there's the what is going on campaigns. And this was one of those, because it was a published adventure, sure, but these guys really infused their personalities into it, getting a fake beard for every person that joins the group that's not a dwarf. Or the drow and the dwarf are half-past drunk, and it's like early morning, and it's time to go through the portal to head towards the spine of the world. So then Harshnag takes them to a brothel so they can get it out of their systems. They sober up. They tell each other how awesome it was when really they just cried and spanked each other.
Okay then. I mean, how was it running a published adventure? Because I've only ever tried one of those pre-programmed adventures, and it was at the request of my players, and I didn't have a good time. Now, that's not to say that none of them are good. That's not even to say that the one that I tried to play wasn't good. Not everything is for everybody, but nothing is for nobody.
What?
The idea is that somebody would enjoy it, just not me.
For nobody.
Yeah, there isn't anything in the world that nobody will like. Somebody's going to like everything.
I'm sure. So I attempted a published adventure before. It's the Star Wars campaign that I'm currently doing with my local group, and this is my third attempt. The first attempt got a chapter in. The second attempt got as far as the midway point of the third chapter. My current attempt has gotten just past that, and we're still going. Okay. We're currently at a Sabacc tournament in Cloud City. My experience with this campaign, the Star Wars campaign, which was also published by Wizards online as a free PDF when they owned the Star Wars RPG system, it's interesting because there's so much just not accounted for. It's like the guys writing it have never role-played before or something. They don't understand the questions players ask. They just assume every player wants to be railroaded, and my understanding is there is a lot of role-playing groups that do railroad, and they're fine with it.
There are.
Such as I just went Scottish for a second. Such as
the
dad. So my Saturday Adventurers League, they're like, man, this is a lot more role-playing than I'm used to, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, yeah,
it's a railroaded adventure.
Yeah, then you go here, and then you kill this, and you go here, and then you kill this, and it's fun for them. And I'm like, but you guys said you wanted to go to the tavern, so we went to the gosh darn tavern, and you drank your ale, and then you went to sleep, and then you woke up, and he was hungover, and he threw up, and this guy got woken up by... How is that not what most groups do? And they're like, no, most groups don't do that. I was like, well, that sucks. So the Star Wars campaign seems to be written in along that vein of the players want to be told what to do. However, there's moments where it goes, the players will probably want to investigate further on this. Mm-hmm. And if that happens, you can tell them this nugget of information that's 100% vital to their success in the campaign. So then I'm like, yeah, you see...
On the off chance that they actually care if they live or die.
No, they didn't even investigate. So I had to sort of work it in. Or, like, things like that, it's just, it makes these assumptions that are wrong. And on the flip side, Storm King's Thunder... yeah, they didn't even think twice about it. They're like, oh, that's nice, flavor. But Storm King's Thunder was a little bit better, and that was an actual like hardback published adventure. It says they need to travel to Waterdeep from the Twin Cities, or whatever, wherever it is that the Legends of Dritz starts off, Icewind Dale. They need to travel from Icewind Dale to Waterdeep. Along the way, have them have these two random encounters that are vital to the story. That I like a lot, because then I have the chapter that talks about that route and all the locations, and it has suggested encounters for those locations, but otherwise it's up to us to determine how much detail to infuse. So it feels like Storm King's Thunder overall is the sort of notes you would compile yourself as a GM, as opposed to being railroaded.
Yeah, I've never liked railroading. Like, what was it? I think they did with Tomb of Horrors was the one I got asked to run. And Tomb of Horrors is a written campaign, a scripted campaign, as it were, that is kind of designed to be like you either get through by the skin of your teeth or you die, and you die horribly. All the puzzles are, they're very thematic. Some of them aren't very challenging. Some are like really challenging, and some are like it'll seem like it's not a very hard puzzle, but if you happen to answer it wrong, it like one-shots you. And so like I ran this at the request of the players, and I'm like going through, this was in 4th edition, so stuff was explained pretty well in the book. It said, here's how the monster is going to act. If it's going to target characters like this, it's going to maneuver like this, it's going to use these spells at this kind of time. So even just following that, it's like, yeah, you party wiped because you didn't approach this encounter well, and it just wasn't. It wasn't for me. Like I prefer stories that where the players make the story. They decide what they want to do, when they want to do it, where they want to go, and you just see what story happens because of that. Versus, like, okay, the players now have to be railroaded over to this area because such and such a monster is going to appear, and they probably want to fight it. It's like, okay.
The very first campaign I ran was very much that. It was, let's see what happens, and I was building the world that I've run games in ever since, just on the fly. Since then, I've done story arc campaigns, which is very much like Storm King's Thunder, where I've got an idea of what the overarching story is, but I'll present a challenge to the players, and they choose how to solve it. Such as trying to avoid a war between these two rival cities. I'm like, I have no idea how they're going to fix it. I just leave it open for them. And they actually broker an alliance between the elves and one of the cities. I'm like, well, that's creative. Storm King's Thunder feels very much like the way that I construct my campaigns, which is here's the story, here's the places they need to go, here's a map of the place they need to infiltrate. Otherwise, it's up to the players how they're doing this. And I appreciate both sides of it. And one of these days, I'm going to do another one of those open-ended campaigns. But my local players tend to enjoy the story arcs that I do, and everyone has a certain way that they enjoy playing.
Mm-hmm.
I think now we're over on time,
Way
and
over.
I'd like to talk
over.
more D&D at some point.
Yes. Let's get out of here.
Get out of here.
Get the flip out of here.
Okay. Hey,
Good
what's
night,
up,
everybody.
Malfoy?
What's going on?
What's going
How's
on?
life? How's the podcast going?
Did you enjoy listening to this one? Since you don't listen to any of it, you got to listen to this one.
I wasn't listening to this one either.
Raise your hand if you're playing a video game.
Me.
I knew it. I'm not playing WoW this time.
But see how I can have very in-depth conversations and play a video game at the same time? I'm like magic.
You didn't talk the whole time.
Did I?
Were you
I think
talking
I
in
talked
your
the
head?
entire time.
I told
Your
you
mic
it was
was
a
muted the whole time.
Tristancast.
Oh,
I wasn't streaming the whole time. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Well, good night, guys. It's been fun.
Good night,
You
everyone.
don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
they can stay here. They can do whatever the hell they want. You can't stop them.
That's true.
There just won't be anything else on the channel for them to see. If
Yeah,
they stay
can't
here.
dop, won't dop.
Oh, goodness. That died 2 years ago. Leave it in the grave.
Tap, 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 tap,
No,
tap.
no. We're not doing that. We're not.
No,
Good night,
no
everybody.
doctors.
Hashtag
Good
goodbye.
night. Good night, Caboose.
Goodbye.
Funny things.
No.
So did you guys don't know what I did at the end of last week's episode because Alex hasn't edited the video yet, but it's funny.
We will take your word for it until we see it.
Yes.
Let's just say it involves music. No, it's not a circus.
Well, with us, you never know.
Yeah, it is kind of a three-ringed something.
This is my circus, and these are my monkeys.
Free-range running dookie.
Free range running dookie.
Oh, monkeys like to throw
Ah, free range. Are your
Free-range
dookie kivas
dookie.
free range?
All my dookie kibas are free range. Free range dookie.
Are they organic?
Of course. Only the best.
I'm leaving.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining us, Tim.